Powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, and it is presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. Amazing invitation series. The Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old High Proof is available now. It is a full-bodied whiskey with the aromas of caramel, toffee, spicy vanilla, rich oak, a butterscotch finish. It is delicious. You must try this out. And Raymond, congratulations, well overdue. All right. Now it's slipped my mind, which isn't difficult to do. In the last episode, maybe two, I was reminded by Scaris and Price on Monday on their show of your induction into the BC Sports Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
Along with, I should say, what a class, right? Soccer great Christine Sinclair and play-by-play legend Jim Hewson. But so number one, congratulations to you.
Thank
Richly
you.
deserved.
Yeah. Thank you.
So now let's bring our viewers and our listeners into an experience that you and I shared, like, what was it, like 3 weeks, a month ago or so. And so Stephanie Maniego reaches out to me via email to say that, well, you've been accepted. You're being inducted into the class 2025. And I'm like, oh, that's tremendous. And I responded, I said, well, does Ray know? And she says, yes, because I wanted to reach out to you directly, right? To call you and say, congratulations, right? So you remember the call, I call you, and I guess I didn't word the congratulations properly. I'm like, hey, so big news, right? And there's like a pause, and you're like, what are you talking about? And I'm in a full brain scramble because I'm like, did I misread Stephanie's email? Like, have you not been told yet? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm the guy that's telling him?
And the way that you called, the way that the call came, I thought like somebody got traded or a coach got fired or like something we were catching up there. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? And you're like, and you were kind of stumbling around. I'm like, I don't even know what's going around. I don't even know what's going down here. And then we kind of get to, I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Now I got it. So
I was sweating.
The ceremony is in June, which, so it can be any random day. It's June the 4th, right? Yeah. Which is Riley's high school graduation.
Oh.
So the event is at 7. Riley's graduation starts at 4:30. Fortunately, F comes near the start. So basically, when he goes across the stage and gets his high school diploma, we're going to tell him, you're going to have to keep on walking, go out that side door. And we got to go. So there's going to be, our family, which includes, of course, Matt and Landon and their kids. And so there's going to be I don't know how the hell we're going to get from UBC to like where his school is down to downtown. So, but I'm super excited. You know what the coolest thing about it, Dregs, was as we're sitting there and they're introducing people, I think we forget, like we just look at pro sport and think that's that sport. But there's people that in relative obscurity have dedicated 30 years of their life to whether it's minor sports or excellence in a sport that you don't see every day. And for them to be recognized too, you see the families that are there.
It's awesome.
And
awesome.
It was so good. It was really not, it's nice to be, as I said, it's nice to be remembered. And then to think a little bit about like, I thought a lot about my mom and dad that day and how incredibly supportive they were. And it was really cool to bring Cammie around and see a part of my life that, she didn't know. And I got this video somebody gave me from the 1977 Canadian Little League Championships.
I'm tremendous.
And so I would have never seen it. I showed it to you. Is it not just like I do an interview after hitting a home run and
Grand Slam, by the way, was it not?
Yes, but the interview, so the guy goes, "So what's going well for you today?" And I'm like, "Well, pretty much everything." And I'm like, I'm just laughing at myself. It's really funny.
We should post it. I'm not sure the video quality, but I think people would get the gist of it by seeing it. It was
pretty fun. But thank you. Yeah, great day. That was a great day.
No question about it. And again, what a class with Christine Sinclair and
Oh,
Jimmy Houston.
yeah.
We've got Chris Mason, who's former NHL goaltender, of course, but he's an analyst with the Nashville Predators. Again, a funny man along with Hal Gill. So Chris Mason is going to join us in this episode of Rain Dregs coming up. And speaking of the Preds, that takes us into headlines because I want your thoughts or theories on why we're seeing the underwhelming starts from some teams, some surprising starts, and Nashville would fit into that category. Headlines are brought to us by Tim Hortons, celebrating the launch of their new spicy rosé flavored flatbread pizza. Spicy and creamy tomato sauce. There's slow cooked chicken on there. There's mozzarella, Monterey Jack cheese, and of course, herb seasoning. And the best part, you can order any 2 flavors of flatbread pizza for just $12 until November 17th. So again, if you want to look great, Carolina with the fewest games played at 5. I think the Devils have played, 9 games. So it's early, but I look at Nashville, I look at Boston. Is it fair to throw Edmonton into this class? Detroit, Buffalo, Montreal, certainly Philadelphia. Any theories at this stage on why we're seeing these underwhelming performances and starts?
Why I think it becomes you have to look at the team and where they are. Like to compare Montreal with Edmonton is not fair.
Right.
Like they're at different stages of development. And I look at the Avs and they've given up 31 goals in 7 games. And then you look and you go, oh, they're missing 4 guys, like 4 real players, and their goalie hasn't made a save yet. And so I think it's different for all of them. But when I look at the standings and see Edmonton and Nashville and Colorado down in the bottom 10, that just doesn't look right. But I think it's different for all of them. I'm at a little bit of a loss, a little bit about Edmonton, because if you think to the times when they struggled in the past, eventually McDavid and Draisaitl would rescue them, and you wouldn't notice maybe the lack of this or that quite so much. But it's been a tougher start. Their power play has been really poor, to the point that they're going to break up their top 5. It looks like going into the next game. Zach Hyman doesn't have a point. And he went from 54 goals last year, and now, what are the Oilers played 7 games? He's got no points. So that stuff, that stuff starts to take on a life of its own. I do think Nashville will start to play better. This felt like a pretty good win for them. Boston's interesting because if we rewind exactly a year ago, I thought Boston would give back 20 points from their 132-point year. I thought they'd give back 20 to 25 points, and everybody, those young teams in the Atlantic, would fight for those points, right? And it never happened. Maybe this is part of the manifestation of the departures of Krejci and Bergeron. Maybe it took a year for it really to take a bite out of them. And let's be honest here. Swayman's thing was a distraction. And also, when Swayman's not in the net, they had Linus Ullmark, and now they don't.
Yeah.
And so it feels like things are shifting a little bit in Boston. You see the tension with Marchand and Montgomery, and Montgomery's quotes in the paper. There's an edge there that wasn't there in the past. So I'm
slow burn. I'm
interested there. Yeah, I'm interested there for sure.
Okay, let's then flip it. And are you buying this version that we're seeing of the Washington Capitals? 5-1 to start the year. I think 3rd, tied with Tampa Bay to this point of the season in goals for at just over 4.3. And there's Pierre-Luc Dubois. 3 points last night on a second line with the Caps with Tom Wilson and Connor McMichael. So I'm not saying that they're driving the bus per se, but collectively, are you buying what you're seeing right now from the Caps?
Okay, I'll start with Dubois because I just did the game in Philly the other night, and we asked him about Dubois in particular, and he said, I kind of feel bad for him because he doesn't have a lot of points right now. He goes, their line's been our best. He's been terrific. Like they've been really, really happy with him, and
nice.
whatever they were able to to reach with him. I mean, the application to the game is the whole key for Dubois because he's got the full tool set, right?
Yeah.
He really does. Size, skating, strength, ability, but there's the crazy part of them scoring a lot of goals is last year they scored 216. Like they could never score.
Yeah.
And Charlie Lindgren would make 35 saves and they'd win somehow, and you'd be like, oh, they made the playoffs, and you're like, they made the playoffs with 216 goals. I think they were minus like 30, I don't know, 35. I can add that up, I guess. Yeah, they were 37 goals minus last year and still made the playoffs. Like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I am buying is some of those younger guys, like Connor McMichael's starting to grow a little bit as a player. Dylan Strome doesn't look like a developing player anymore. He looks like he's in the prime of his career. Like he's strong and he holds the puck. And John Carlson, year after year, plays 25 minutes, and he's still a really, really good player. Washington is better, I think, than I thought they were going to be. They had a really active offseason for their team. I thought it was really interesting, right? They got Dubois, Chychrun, Mangiapane.
Yeah.
They brought in Thompson. They don't have Matt Roy right now. He's hurt.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think they did a really good job there. They making their team better. So they went into Philly and shut Philly down and then beat them in the rematch. And here's the other thing I would say. There's so few games played. You might clump games against teams that aren't playoff teams.
Right.
Or you might get a murderer's row of schedule early.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's why we got to maybe just temper the disaster or the fabulous right now, because it needs to even itself out a little bit.
It's safe to say that every time Spencer Carberry has the opportunity of the empty net, he's throwing Ovechkin over the board. So I mean, load up those goal totals. I want to be a part of this,
Well, what was interesting I don't know, I'm sure of it. Last night, or the game in Philly, after 2 periods, he'd played like 14 minutes, 7 minutes on the power play and 7 minutes at 5-on-5. Yeah. Like there was a bunch of 4-on-4 and he's not out there for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's really interesting how they use him, like he plays the full 2 minutes still on the power play. Yeah. On that stats board that we all can get, it shows how many feet a player skates in a game. Ovi's plays 2 minutes on the power play. He skates like 18 feet. And you're like, it's like good, but so he got the empty netter, and he's not 40 goal Ovechkin anymore. Right. No, and so we have to remember that. And by the way, when you said about Spencer Carberry, I thought you were going to say, when he's not coaching, is he a lock for television? And the answer is yes. Yeah. What a great speaker. What an engaging. And I can see why the players would connect, because some guys that have this great coach speak, it feels a little false. It feels a little bit like they're trying for every buzzword and phrase. He's just a really engaging guy. Mm-hmm. And I can see why players would like him a lot.
So 2 quick thoughts here, and we're going to wrap up headlines a bit early because we've got Chris Mason coming up around the corner here. But Kevin Kurz tweeted something yesterday, I believe, on the Philadelphia Flyers, and you've done, 2 or 3 of those games?
Three now.
But so you'd be aware of this, of course. I think he said that John Tortorella has engaged 18 different line combinations through 6 games played. So you played on some tough teams that struggled, right? And I'm sure that coaches, tried everything to find some chemistry. But so as a player, you don't have a choice. You just go out there and play. But would it frustrate you? Like, just leave us alone for a period. Or do you appreciate what Tortz is trying to do and just try and find something that works here?
It does get frustrating for sure. But there, again, like I came to this thing a couple of years ago. Nothing in hockey or in sports or really in life is one thing. there's always more things that look into the one thing we're trying to figure out. So let's say they play Tippett, Frost, and Konechny together. And there's a power play. And so the way the power play unit goes out, there's a change, whatever happens, and then Konechny stays late on the power play. And so the next line is the power play ends, and then it's Tippett, Frost, and Lawton. Well, there's a new line combination. So there's a lot of that happens in the game anyway. So it would be not uncommon to have 6 or 7 8 different line combinations on a team that's playing great. That it just happens in the way the games happen. What Kevin's talking about, I think, is like they make legit line switches. Like Sean Couturier starts on the wing and then he plays in the middle. They move the centers up and down. I'm almost certain that if they had a legit center ice position, you wouldn't see this much line combination juggling.
Right.
But the center position of the Flyers is a point of growth that's needed. Yeah. It's just not strong enough yet. So, and by the way, when I'm reading on Insider Trading, by the way, you guys are talking about teams looking around for centers. Oh yeah, really? Are they looking around for a number 1 right-handed defenseman too? Like there's like the hard.
It always makes me laugh with that kind of stuff.
You talk to a GM. Oh yeah, we're looking for a righty D. Oh yeah, really? You? Anyone else? Yeah, 14 other teams. The other thing with the Flyers, I will say, I'm doing the roster, and I'm like, they got 13 guys under the age of 25 on it.
Yeah,
they're a young team, and so Tortz is looking for offense, and 18's a lot, but I don't think he'd like to do it. I think he'd love to have stable lines. He probably just doesn't feel like they can.
All right, let's wrap up headlines with the hit of the season thus far. And that was Jacob Trouba. No surprise there with the New York Rangers absolutely crushing Justin Barron of the Montreal Canadiens. Now, instantly the feedback I received from people I trust inside the department described it as clean and mean. Now, clean and mean, that's what it was. First of all, do you agree with that? Clean hit?
Yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you why. Couple things here. Because it's Trouba, the outrage becomes, oh yeah, see, he did it again. Every hit, like if if Adam Fox made that hit, it wouldn't have the same hit. It wouldn't have the same outrage because you wouldn't have 17 other hits to compare it to. That's not the way Adam Fox plays. When Trouba hits, you're allowed to be mean in the game. Like they can't say, oh, you can hit, but don't be mean. And when he hits like a truck. Now, last year in the playoffs, he tried to hit somebody by the boards. It might have been the first game of the playoffs, and he missed.
Who was it? Was it Carolina?
It was a Carolina player, so it was in the second round. He went over top of him. Yeah. If he would have hit him, it was Natchez. It was Natchez. Yeah. If he would have hit him, it would have been, oh my God. And he should have gotten fined, and he did. And like that was a dangerous play. This one, as Barron's carrying the puck, I'm telling you guys, like if you're carrying it and you see the road closing, right? Like you can see it in the second before it happens. You're like, oh shit, there's nowhere to go. And he looks like he's pulling away.
He does.
Trying to, like in that moment, he's like, uh-oh. Like I'm trying to find a place to go. And as Trouba doesn't leave his feet, his elbow's stapled to his hip, his shoulder doesn't elevate through the hit. He goes through the hit, Trouba.
Yeah.
You're allowed to do that. And so as Barron lowers himself, the contact becomes shoulder and head. I mean, it's pretty obvious to see, but that's just a mean, hard hit.
Yeah. So not to get into this big philosophical conversation, but I do want, because you played through an incredibly hard era, every level, not just the NHL, but certainly in the Western Hockey League and probably in the development minor hockey leagues prior to that. And this is going to sound archaic. Of course, I don't want young kids getting hurt playing hockey, but it's all about skill and speed in all of the development streams now, right? So maybe a Justin Barron or I don't understand how players don't know when Jacob Trouba is on the ice. When you played for the Brandon Wheat Kings and whomever was on the ice, probably
Dave Manson,
you knew he was out there, and you knew that you had to have your head on a swivel. And these young players coming into the NHL now, because it happens so infrequently in junior hockey and in college and in the NHL, they just don't have the same spidey senses, I don't think.
No, I'll agree. In particular, in the middle of the ice.
Yeah.
Because before you could, a back checker could slow a forward up. So defensemen more frequently stayed up in the neutral zone. Don't forget, at practice, we used to practice interference. Like, we used to literally practice penalties, like to take interference, to take speed away. Get in front of them, get a stick on them, like all these things that are penalties today. So now a player can go through the neutral zone, in most cases, physically unimpeded. Yeah. They've got to work their way through the systematic defense of the team, right? They got to weave their way through, but you don't have to find the danger. I'm sure I was no different than everybody else, but when you would jump on the ice or when you're watching the game from the bench and you're next, I'm looking all the time to see who's out there. I know where my guy is, the guy I'm changing for, but I'm looking around to see who are the D, who's the centerman I'm playing against. Like, I knew that. And so when I hit the ice, there was 0 times in my career I didn't know where Scott Stevens was. 0. Because what if I'm going down the left side and I decide it's a really good idea to cut it? Oh, there's open ice. I'm going to cut into the middle. Well, there's a brick wall standing there. And so I think because of the way the game was played, which was slower and more east to west, you had to be aware of where you use spidey sense, like you just had to be. And I don't think Barron realized until too late that the road was closed. Yeah. And that gets us right back to the hit itself. And again, I just think it was mean, and you're allowed to be mean in the game. It was a clean hit.
Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons.
Tim's new spicy rosé chicken flatbread pizza, made with a spicy and creamy rosé sauce served hot out of the oven. It's always a good day for spicy rosé chicken flatbread pizza. And for a limited time, get 2 flatbread pizzas for only $12.
It's time for Tim's.
Our interviews on Ray and Dregs are brought to us by Canadian Club Classic 18-year-old High Proof. Invite your senses to an elevated Canadian whiskey experience with Canadian Club. All right, pleased to be joined on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast by Chris Mason, who's an analyst with the Nashville Predators, longtime goaltender in the National Hockey League. Ray, do you recall scoring on Chris Mason at any point? I suppose it'd be the latter stages of your career.
Well, if I did, it would have been a long way to his net. At my age, it would have been a long way down there.
Mace goalies have good memories.
Yeah, everyone seemed to score on me back at the end of my career, and that's how I got phased out. But no, Chicken Parvs, you're one of my favorite color guys. I remember getting into color, and I wanted to make sure I got on the show to be able to tell you that. But I love listening to you.
Thank you.
The way that you explain plays, and your energy is just awesome. And
it's a fun thing, isn't it? It's fun, like what we get to do, and I like the absurdity of the game too. I think that, like everybody's trying so hard and really ridiculous stuff happens. And that gives me, like, I don't know, it just gives me energy. I like, I'm in Philly the other night and I'm watching a trainer hand a water bottle to one of the Flyers. And when he hands it to him, the top comes off the water bottle. It sprays all over him and over the coaches. I think that's like because we're all in there trying so hard. I think it's so fun. And I don't know. I love that stuff. It's like, you don't get it every day, right?
Yeah, I love. You need the balance of it, right? Like, that's a good example. Is a stick goes over the glass, and then you see the curmudgeon security guard come and take it away from the person that gets it. And if you can get that, that's why the camera guys are so good. If they can get those moments, it is so fun because you need a good balance. You get all the good stuff all the time, but those things I think make it special.
So, Mace, you're down in Nashville. You're getting into all of this, and your Predators win the off season. Everybody's so fired up, and it's a flat out mess out of the gate. How much of that is newness? How much of that was play? Was it like there has to be a lot of factors to lose 5 in a row, right?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a little bit of believe in the stuff that you're reading, and that because they had such a great end of the season, and it was such a fun team to cover. They really worked. It was the hardest working team, and they had all those elements to it. And it was a team that would go every night. They took on that relentless moniker and really embodied that. And then I think I felt a little bit when you got into the season that they thought, hey, now we have Stamkos and Marchessault and Brady Shea, and we're that team, but we're better. So maybe we don't have to work quite as hard, or maybe we can play a little bit different, a little more east-west, little cuter types of plays. And for a team that really, I don't feel against any team or any game last year, you could say that they lost the interior battle or getting to the net front or the hard areas. Really, the first 5 games, I thought they were a very perimeter team. They would, play to the outside. They'd get a lot of shots. They were leading the league in shots on goal, but the quality wasn't there. And I think last game against the Bruins, which was probably their toughest opponent in terms of, winning those types of battles and getting to those areas, that they really just kind of as a group said, all right, this is, the joke's over, enough's enough, and let's go be who we are. But it was really head scratching at first, but you got a lot of personalities, and you guys know how it is. It changes the dynamic of your locker room, of the way that you go and approach the game, maybe in the back of your head. And if you're not fully willing and committed to play that type of, relentless style of play, it shows. And I think it did in the first 5 games. And hopefully that last game they played against the Bruins, which was more like themselves, we see that this weekend.
You said something that kind of made me think, like, so you've got guys that have been leaders everywhere they go, and now they're all thrown into one locker room. And everybody's got to find their place. Like Stamkos has got to find his place alongside of O'Reilly, alongside of Yossi, alongside of Marchessault, who's like they're all kind of big personalities. Like, were you ever around any, like a team like that where, like everybody had to find their level before you could kind of get into what the team really is? Because at the start, nobody knew what the hell it was.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, it's always so hard when you have a guy. I remember when Paul Kariya specifically came to Nashville, and that was the biggest, superstar player that I'd ever played with. And it really changed this franchise and organization and my career and the way I, looked at a superstar. But he came in, and you can't just come in and all of a sudden start, barking out orders, and you walk in and you're taking over the leadership group, even though everybody knows that, that's the alpha, that's the guy. There's a process and there's a time frame to do that. You kind of have to, even though you may know some players or some guys, you have to earn that space, I guess, in the locker room. And I think really good leaders know that. And I think really good leaders that are currently on the team, they help integrate that situation, say, hey, this is our guy. We got to get him there. We have to, they'll get there eventually. But I think with the, the group of core leaders here in Nashville, I think they understand that these guys have been around. They've been through those. They've won Stanley Cups. There's a lot of big personalities in there. And it's interesting. You have to somehow find that dynamic of where exactly do you fit in, because you can't have all those guys yapping at once, right? You got to give each other space and do it at the right times and kind of spread that out. And I think the more guys that you have, you don't just necessarily have to lean on, one guy to always, give you crap after a tough game or a period, or do the closed door meeting and it's one guy talking all the time. You've got a lot of really strong voices and a lot of guys that have won. So I think, once they sort that out, and I do think that takes time, but they'll figure it out. They've got guys that are very aware of that, and good character people as well.
Yeah, and Barry Trotz made it abundantly clear, did he not, that he wanted to surround this group with winners, which is why he went after, of course, Stamkos and John Marchessault. But it was interesting earlier this week, telling reporters that, look, I'm working the phones. And specifically, he identified looking for a center. Like, nobody's trading anyone of value at this point. We're not even 10 games into the NHL regular season. But when you look up the middle of the lineup of the Nashville Predators, I mean, is that a defined need? And what quality center should Barry Trotz be in the market for here?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they really want to have Stamkos and Marchessault play together. Both guys are shooters. Marchessault's a little hound dog. He gets in there and, does his thing. They need somebody to get them the puck. To me, before this season started, I feel like Tommy Novak is the guy that has to be there in order for that line to really have success. They put them together to start the year. It didn't work out. I don't think, sometimes it's intimidating, and you could probably talk to this, Ray, as a younger player, and all of a sudden you have a Stanley Cup MVP on one side and you have a future Hall of Famer, one of the most.
I was just going to ask you, what's Novak? Well, I was just going to ask you, what's Novak like? Like, because that would be really hard. The first time you throw a grenade into Stamkos's feet or miss Marchessault by 8 feet. And, Marchessault, I will say, is one of my favorite players in the league because I see a lot of myself in him. He's like he's a cocky little guy, and like he needs goals or air to him. And when he doesn't get them, man, everything shows. And so that would be really hard for Novak. Like, that's a big step for him, isn't it?
That's a great point, and that's exactly right. Like he's a quiet guy. He's a very unassuming, intellectual type of a guy, quiet personality, just goes about his business. Very talented.
Didn't he get voted the worst dressed guy on the team last year?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Yeah, that's I didn't see that, but that's a possibility. But he's a good kid, but you're right, though, when you get in that situation, if you're like that and let's say you're in a great situation to shoot the puck, you're like, oh, maybe I better pass it to Stamkos. And you kind of defer to those guys. And Marchessault, like you said, he's fiery. Every time he goes out there, he's always engaged. He always wants the puck. He's never, if it's an okay shift, that's not good enough. He's not happy. So I think that I know for myself personally, when I was a younger player, when you did start playing with those types of players, it is intimidating. And again, that's something that takes time to say, hey, these guys, they're just like me. Stamkos is one of the nicest guys. Marchessault's fiery, but he's a great teammate, wants to win. But it takes time for a young player to feel comfortable, I think, playing with those guys. But I think they do. That is something they have to look at down the middle because, Ryan O'Reilly, he played like a first line center. The guy plays, he's getting up there. He plays 22 minutes as a game. He penalty killed. Power play. Like, is that your number one center? I know you can't go out and maybe make a big move right now, but it's something you definitely have to take a look at to see if there's anything out there.
When they go and acquire the guys in the summer, right? Like now you've got 3 right-handed big shooters, right? You with Marchessault and Stamkos and Philip Forsberg, who, if people don't know much about him and they saw him a little bit in the Amazon series, that guy's got some style. Hey, like, man, and can he play? He's a terrific player. Like, even if you get another center, like, how do you make all those guys fit? Like, they all want to shoot. They're all right-handed. They're all big scorers. Like, how does Andrew Brunette make that all fit?
Yeah, that's good. I actually talked to Bruno about that in the beginning of the season because, Phil Forsberg played that side. He had a great year. I think he just really found himself as a player last season in terms of the way that he drives the net and the physicality and the goals that he would score around the net last season. But he's actually really liked him. He moved him over to the other side. So he's a right-hand shot kind of on the half wall. And he's doing a really good job. I would never, consider him, an elite playmaker per se. Before, but he's really embraced that move to have those 5 guys together because Bruno wasn't quite sure if Forsberg would fit over there just with his skill set and just, he's played on the other side, on the left side there on that right one-timer spot. But they've looked really good. They've generated a ton of chances. I think they just need some reps. They're starting to figure out the angles to get the puck to Stamkos. But also take those other opportunities and show the other threats that they have. And it's really starting to look good. the power play percentage. I think they're about half in the league, but they get a ton of chances. But it's worked out, and it's a great point because that was Bruno's biggest concern to start the season. But so far, he's liked what he's seen from Phil Forsberg on the right side there, and that was his biggest point of contention. And it's looked good so far. They just need to start finishing off a few more of their scoring chances.
I was looking here. So you get to Nashville, just to flip gears a bit, in 98, 99. You play just a couple of games there, mostly in the American League. Think back to that time. Remember when the arena was the only thing on that corner?
Yes.
And there was nothing else. And I remember going there and we're like, yeah, everybody says they're all fired up about this place. And I was coming there with Atlanta. So, I mean, it was a chore. But it was like it didn't seem like we couldn't see the vision of it. So maybe compare a little bit like what's there now, what the people like now, what the city's grown to, because it is without doubt one of the best places for a visiting player to go. And I know the guys love living there too when they play there.
Absolutely. If we had the crystal ball back then, I would have taken all my minor league salary and bought real estate down there in Nashville. But it was a ghost town. There was over half of Broadway that was vacant. They had Tootsie's. They had a couple of the bars and they weren't even really that touristy. It was kind of not a popular place necessarily to go. And, even the kids playing hockey, I remember going on public skates and, learn to play things, and kids are wearing football helmets and all that type of thing. They had minor league hockey, but it's a football town. You guys know what like down south, but, fast forward to now, and it is by far, I mean, you walk out of the arena, you're on Broadway. You guys know there's no better location. It's better than Vegas. Vegas is right there too, but there's no better location. You go to a game, there's just tons of shopping. There's something for everybody now, which is really cool. It's turned into like a foodie city. The tourism down there, I'll tell you what, although people say it's good, they have the scooters and the cycle taverns and all the tractors and stuff. It annoys the heck out of me when I'm driving to the rink. I'll tell you that much, but people seem like they're having a good time, but it is absolute. It's craziness. And it's all year round. People come here from all over the world all year long. And it has really turned in. It's one of the coolest cities. And I really don't go down there for the games or if I have people in town, but everybody that comes here, they're like, oh, we got to go to Broadway. It's unbelievable. Right. So, but it is like night and day. You talk about, you're right, Ray, 1998 to now. It's a different world.
Yeah, Chris, you clearly enjoy what you do, and you're part of a real entertaining broadcast team that telecasts the Nashville Predators games. Yeah. Tell us about Hal Gill and how the podcast, the Bag Chucker Pod, was formed. And the reason every time a tweet comes out of the video of Big Hal just chucking that bag into the hotel room, it makes me laugh for a couple of reasons. One, it's funny, but two, I think of the time that I've traveled with Ray. There is zero chance Ray Ferraro is just haphazardly throwing his bag.
I see that. I see him throw the bag in. Mace, it gives me angst. I'm like, I got to go in there and hang everything. I got to hang everything up and like unpack it. And then I'm like, okay, then I can go. And he throws that thing in. Doesn't matter how much it weighs.
Makes
and it looks
me laugh
like it just,
every time.
Unreal.
Honestly, it was funny and getting into the broadcast thing because, when I was a player, and, especially when you weren't really allowed to show your personality. I had no online presence at all. I had no Twitter until I started this job. They're like, hey, you got to get Twitter and Instagram and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, how do you do that? They had to help me set it up and everything. And I said, you know what? Because the thing I love about hockey is the people in it and the personalities. And I don't think you get to see that much. And Hal Gill is exactly the same. He's got a great personality. He's a funny guy. He's got all the one-liners and things like that. So we're like, let's have fun with it. I don't know what to tweet and write, and you can only tweet like, hey, this guy played good. He got 2 goals, right? So all of a sudden we're making these funny videos, and then we're like, let's do this one. Like, you get to the hotel and the boys are gonna go grab a couple beers. You check your bag and you go to the lobby, and it was just an 11-second thing. And it kind of caught on. So, we just said, okay, this this is fun. Let's think of different ways we could do it. The next one, he's chucking his bag, and then he's on the way out, and Willie Donnock, our play-by-play guy, is in the way, and he body checks him into the wall. Just stupid stuff like that. So we did that, and that kind of runs its course. We made some T-shirts. We try to raise some money for this military charity that we're really close with here in Nashville and Clarksville. And then it's after a certain point, you're just like, all right, like, what are you going to do? You just, how many times can you do that? And we really didn't want that to be the message. So we were talking about doing a podcast for the last few years, and we never really had exactly what we want to do. And we're trying to figure this all out ourselves, but we want to tailor it more to, just some of the stuff we go through on the road, some of the places we visit, the activities, just a couple of guys. You guys travel a lot. We both have 3 kids, the kind of the guilt that you feel when you come home after a road trip and you got to take all your kids to sports, ways that we're trying to, make ourselves better, eating habits, fitness stuff, all these different types of things. And we just want to take a little more, I guess, a dad, podcast type of a feel with some fun stuff there, but just a little more personal, and just like some of the hardships and the fun stuff, but also the reality of the things that you go on and you guys know when you travel all the time, it's not always easy. It seems glamorous, but there's some stuff behind the curtains that isn't. So we just want to share all that with everybody.
That's awesome. When you say that, I'm like, okay, so 3 of the last 4 mornings, I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning to get a flight. And I'm like, Jesus, that sucks. But I love the job. So like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it. Now, how old are your kids, Mace?
I got 18 daughter. She's a senior. And then I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. So I got them all over the board. Yeah.
So I come home yesterday. I get home at about 2:30 or, from the airport, and pick up my youngest son at school. He's 14. And then Cammie and I were going to go out for dinner last night. So as we're going out, like my oldest guy, Riley, he's 17. He comes home from school, soccer training, and he gets in. And so as we're leaving, he walks by in the kitchen. He goes, "Hey, when'd you get home?" Like, he didn't even know I was there. And I was like, just like 2 hours ago. He's like, "Okay, I'll see you later." Because he knew we were going out. And it's just what you say. You're like, I felt like a schmuck. It's like, man, the kid just got home. I want to spend some time. And I'm like, yeah, just busy. When Hal was playing though, Mace, I got to tell you, there were no rules then, right? And so big freaking donkey like that, he'd wrap you up in front of the net or lay about 11 cross checks on you, and then he'd just kind of lumber out with Bork, and they'd go out to position, and you'd be like, how the hell are you going to get around these guys? Like, you couldn't. And he was funny. Always, he's got a funny way about him.
He does, right? And he'll play the hard game, but he kind of makes it like you give you the one-liners, like, sorry, I gotta do this to you. Otherwise I'm not gonna play, and I'm playing with Ray. And he's really good at, and he is really funny, and he's got a good character that he puts on, but he's a smart guy. Yeah. He's a very vulnerable guy at certain points too. He's just a really good person, and he's a good character in the game, but he's a big lug, that's for sure. I don't know how the heck you guys did it, because they didn't call any penalty. You could do anything. I don't know how anybody got back in that day.
What'd be real fun is you stand in front of the net, and honestly, like a guy like Hal or these big lugs on defense, they'd cross-check you a couple times. Dregs has heard this. And then like the third time they'd cross-check you, and the goalie is slashing your ankles at the same time, the ref would yell from the corner, "That's enough." And you're like, it was a penalty 3 slashes ago. But there was like, "Move it along, shut up." Like the refs would go like, "Zip it, Ferraro, move it along." And then like, it's brutal.
It's unreal. And we always say this too, is like, everyone's like, all right, you guys don't worry. But I'd love to see players play in today's game. I mean, that would have been tailor-made for you, and guys like Paul Correa, Bure, and just to see some of those guys play in today's game would have been pretty cool.
Nothing worse than hearing the tough area on the ice. Are you kidding me? The tough area.
I know, right? Yeah,
that was a war zone in there.
All right, Chris, we got to let you go, brother. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for taking the time. We'll continue to check in on the Bag Chucker pod. So say hi to Hal and the entire crew. And hey, here's hoping for some more positive stories around the Nashville Predators moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me on.
Okay, you betcha, Mace. Thanks a lot. Good luck with everything, eh?
Thank you guys. Take care.
All right, Ray, Chris Mason. I don't know.
Yes.
Did you notice? For anyone watching on our YouTube channel, or I guess on my X feed, because you can see it visually. Did you see the branding company behind Mace sitting in his fancy studio? The Happy
but I couldn't
Beard
read. I couldn't
company?
read it. Yeah,
yeah, I think it was
yeah.
That's a pretty fancy beard. Like that's a clean, crisp, oiled, well-coiffed beard.
Yeah, that one just doesn't show up. He's working at that. It's a good look, though. What
Not
a well-spoken guy, eh? What a well-spoken guy. Pretty thoughtful and thinking about it. I love the idea behind the podcast.
Yeah.
Like that's a really cool idea, him and Hal Gill as well. And he's funny and he's sharp, and their broadcast is entertaining. It really is.
It is.
They do a good job.
Yeah. What is it about goalies, right? Why are goalies just seemingly automatic analysts? I don't know. Do they have all that time to think in the crease?
Yeah, it's not even in the crease. It's like, I think it's when they're on the bench. They got nothing to do. They sit there with a ball hat on. They watch the game. They talk to the trainer. They talk to the D or the forwards that are sitting there. So they're mostly all engaging guys. All they got to do is open the door. And half of them can't open the door because they're busy talking to somebody.
Yeah.
It's like it. So I think they're always analyzing, right? They're always analyzing those guys. They got nothing,
And he would have opened a lot of doors in his 300 plus NHL games, with all due respect. All right, buddy. What
I'll
do you
tell
got
you, so I will say there are some that are right into their job.
Yeah.
And there are others that door's closed more than it's open. And you're like, Jesus, could you open the door? They're like, oh yeah, sorry. And they open it. And like, it's not that hard.
No.
Nope.
Big weekend ahead. What's going on in the farm?
No. Well, not till Sunday. Actually, that's wrong. I'm actually doing my first Hockey Night in Canada game on Saturday night.
Nice.
The Pittsburgh Penguins are in town. And then after hours, I'm going to do my first after hours, I guess. And Tyler Myers is going to be the guest. His first 1,000, just his 1,000 games for him, for Tyler, just this past week. And then Sunday, I fly to Tampa for Nashville, Tampa on Monday.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to getting there for that. That'll be a big day for Stamkos and the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well,
what do you got?
Well, it's Thursdays we record this episode, so we've got Leafs and Blues. Of course, that's the rematch of the St. Louis Blues and Craig Berube, their former Stanley Cup winning coach. So I've got that. The weekend is pretty clear, but Katie Dreger accepted to the bar on Monday.
Really?
So
awesome.
Bar acceptance in Toronto. The ceremony is Monday. Why wouldn't the whole process has been rewarding? Absolutely. Expensive. No question. So why wouldn't we wrap up a very expensive run here by spending all of Sunday downtown, overnight downtown, nice dinners, the whole thing, and then the ceremony on Monday. So that's what we've got.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Katie, and to you guys as well. It's an amazing milestone. And get into Dad's credit card and enjoy it all.
Again and again and again. All right, buddy. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks to everybody for listening. Chris Mason for joining, and we'll see you next week.
And thank you to our sponsors who continue to support Ray and Dregs and make this podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey, and Tim Hortons. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.